Hey everyone, David here from the StarCraft Garden site to bring you a quick video on choke points in StarCraft 2. So yes, choke points, as you can see, are basically narrow stretches of land between bigger stretches of land, and they can provide some pretty big advantages for the defending player on the other side of the choke point, that is. So yeah, first of all, they allow you to basically spot incoming attacks more. Incoming ground attacks a bit more easily, given that they'll be funneled through there. So even just having a couple of, one or two scouting units will be enough to spot incoming attacks, rather than having to cover more ground with more scouting units or sentry units, as it were. And second of all, units coming in through a choke point won't be able to form a nice little firing concave as easily as the defending units would be able to. So that means that you'll be able to hold off larger forces with less forces in general. If your opponent is coming from a choke point. But keep in mind that if you stay in one position for too long, of course they might find another way around the choke point, and just try to destroy your forces that way. So just keep that in mind. So yes, all three races can make use of the choke points in different ways, and the first race we'll be having a look at. Sorry, the first race that we'll be having a look at is the Terrans, and they arguably can take advantage of choke points in the best way possible, given the massive range on their siege tanks and the fact that they do splash damage. So units will be bunched up there and taking quite a bit of damage from siege tanks as a result. And generally put, the siege tanks can make or break such a defense in that case. Although it's best to have a few buffer units in front as well, in order to spot for the siege tanks, as well as provide a buffer between the approaching enemy and the siege tanks themselves. Zerg, on the other hand, because they don't have much when it comes to long-ranged units, they can, or really don't really have any, long-ranged ground units that can do splash damage. Usually they just wall in temporarily with units such as roaches or queens. Although sometimes putting down a couple of banelings, borrowed banelings, that is, at choke points can be pretty devastating, especially if you set them to explode just at the right moment, to say the least. And last but not least, we have the Protoss, who, thankfully, because they do have units such as the Stalker, Immortal, and the Colossus, which can inflict splash damage. They do a pretty good job in holding off choke points, and they can also seal themselves in, or they help narrow choke point even further with the use of buildings and a zealot as well, to provide a gateway, as it were, or a gate, a gate basically. Zerg, they can now use things like spine crawlers and all that, so it would be tricky for them to form a complete wall in it, and normally they wouldn't do that with buildings. Well, Terrans can of course use a combination of supply depots, barracks, factories, bunkers, that sort of stuff to help wall in against a choke. So apart from these regular choke points that you see here, the other form of choke points you'll of course be seeing would be in the form of the ramp. So normally you'll have a couple of ramps, or one or two ramps, leading to and from your main base, as well as your natural expansions. And there are quite a few expansion places on the map which would have a single or just a couple ramps leading up to them as well, which can act as choke points as well. So there you have it. Choke points, pretty important terrain feature, and can certainly come in handy for defending force. Although keep in mind let's say an opponents usually just try to find another way around rather than going directly through the choke point to engage your forces. So keep in mind, they could still be vulnerable from a different direction. And yes, one last thing to note, of course, is the Protoss also got these nice little sentry units, which can actually be used to create temporary artificial choke points of their own, using force fields, of course. So we'll just demonstrate that very quickly. There we go. Lay down a couple of force fields, and as you can see, we've managed to create a temporary artificial choke point right there. It can also come in pretty handy, even if they're say for example you have a few forces along with these sentries. You could, for example, create temporary force fields around here. There we go. And just have, for example, one or a couple of choke points. Say for example, if you're surrounded by Zerglings, then just concentrating your zealots around there would make them that much more effective. And you could even say that your forces depending on the circumstances. So there you go. That's well, nice to use nice to use 4 shields. I should say, being able to create temporary choke points like that. So it can certainly come in handy in the midst of battle, especially. So there you have it. Check out this StarCraft Garden site for more information, and until next time, this has been Dame to the Vid, signing off.